As I mentioned in my previous videos, one of my goals was to release a video about once a quarter about how things have progressed for me. Just as a quick refresher, this whole thing started when I inherited my great-grandfather's journals. He wrote every day in his journal just a quick note about something that had happened that day. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing. My journal up to this point has pretty much been what I post on Facebook. That's probably, if you want to see my history, that's pretty much what you'd have to do. And I wanted to be able to have something a little more tangible, something analog that I could pass on to my kids that might mean something. So I decided to go with the Traveler's Notebook solution. It uses lots of inserts I can have for various purposes, and I'll kind of cover how that's changed from my earlier videos as far as my setup goes in a follow-up video here in a few more days. But for this specific video, what I wanted to cover was what I've been able to accomplish and what I have finished in the last 5 months since I started journaling. One of the things that I tried to do when I started this process was I wanted to kind of mimic my great-grandfather, whereas he used this more as a journal. I decided to take this into my planner section. So what I did was I purchased a Traveler's Notebook free diary weekly plus memo to start, since I was halfway through the year and I couldn't get hold of the pre-printed ones, which is what I have here. And this has become my planner so that I can track what I'm doing on a daily basis. You'll notice here on the left side, I have my appointments and things like that. And then on the right side is more where I do what my great-grandfather did, which is kind of write a synopsis of what happened for the day. I also put a little note here at the top that kind of gives me an idea of what happened during the week. I usually use this for referring back to if I'm going to actually do a journal entry, which I'll kind of go over here shortly, what day it might have happened on. So this is just kind of a way to refer back to the past and see what happened on what day. Also on this side where my planner is, I will, if there's a special journal entry that I have, I will put a star here and I will list what journal that is in, so that if I have kind of a special entry, more than just this quickie note here on the side, I can let people know. I seriously doubt people are going to look much at this one because it's pretty boring. I mean, it's a daily, yes, I had lunch, I did this, it was hard at work, blah, 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 that type of thing. But if they are going through it, they can at least see some significant moments and events that happened in my life that I actually went to the trouble of journaling. So that's really what this one is. This is the planner. It's the first section of my Traveler's Notebook. This is my New Year one there in blue because now I actually have a pre-printed one as opposed to the generic one. But that's what I have at the very front of my Traveler's Notebook is my planner. So the second goal that I had was to do a little beyond what my great-grandfather did, because let's be honest, going through 50 of these and all I'm reading is a single line of an event that happened. Obviously, it's usually just like I had dinner, I visited Aline, those types of things. That's not very engaging for a long period of time, and I wanted to have something that I could pass down to my kids. It's at least something that's a little more interesting. So in addition to that, what I have in my Traveler's Notebook in the back is my journal. I'm already on journal 3, and I will kind of show you kind of what makes up the journals here. Those are all done in the 002, the 5mm grid Traveler's Notebook insert. That's just what I tend to prefer. So I finished 2 of those journals already. Wanted to give an example of a couple of things I've done here. In journal 1, I made a trip. My wife and I drove to Illinois. We were we live in Utah, so we drove to Illinois, and so I've documented the entire trip, the states that we went through, those types of things. I got to stop in Riverside, Iowa, which is supposedly the birthplace of Captain James Kirk. So I had to make notes there. But that's what I use the journal for, is to document some of these big entries. Here's another one that I did. This was just a morning I decided to relax. Melinda and the kids were in Wyoming, so I just actually went and stayed the night with my parents. just to chat and enjoy the time. They have hummingbirds on the back porch. And Mom had made me a cherry pie, which is my favorite meal of all time. This was in the morning when I was relaxing on their back porch looking out the back. But also on top of that, in addition to the picture of the cherry pie, I actually even included the recipe for the cherry pie, because this, nothing beats this cherry pie for me, and that's probably because I started with this one, but I wanted to include the recipe for anyone that might read this in the future, so I actually printed out the recipe and then taped it in here so that people could actually make that pie if they decided to. And my daughter and I both enjoy the Freerin anime, so I did a little entry on that. But that's journal 1. So again, in my planner, I actually will have a star there and it'll say go to journal 1, and in each of these journal entries that's specific, I will put the date. So on August 20th, it'll tell you, you just search in my planner, you'll see August 20th as a star, then you find August 20th in journal 1, and that's what you have. I also finished journal 2 while I was at it, and I started it by documenting all the quilts that my wife and I have done. I wanted to at least get those documented. We've made several quilts together, and I thought it was worth having some entries to kind of talk about those. Another thing that we did as a family, we played an 8-player game of Stardew Valley. So I wanted to document that in my journal. So this is the golden clock we finally achieved, our area. This is all of us and what characters we played. I actually made stickers out of every single one of our characters and put them in here and listed what we did, along with some other things that happened, like our single largest sale was 2.2 million. I had stocked up a whole bunch of ancient wine, and we sold it all at once just as we were ending the game because we finally finished. And I'm big into, obviously with this journal, one of the other side tracks I got down was fountain pens. So this was an entry specific to fountain pens. I did the Diamine ink vent. So this is all 25 days of that ink vent that went on. I did the swatches. This is my pens. So that's really what this journal is all about, is documenting big events, things I think will be interesting, and having pictures that they can look at and understand, oh, that's what he was doing. I understand a little better now on those types of things. It's kind of what this is all about. So I finished 2 and have started my 3rd. Now those 2 inserts are what are in my main journal. I do have a second traveler's notebook. I got the Tokyo one, which I use for a couple of other inserts. One of the other things that I thought was important is, yes, I'm keeping a journal now, but obviously I have quite a bit of past that I'd like to cover. So I also started another insert that specifically talks about my history. And that started with me showing, I did an entry on every state that I lived in, because I lived in quite a few states. Then what I did was I moved on to this is my great-grandfather. This is the one that actually wrote these journals. And he was big in the railroad industry. And so someone had drawn this little cartoon specifically about him and some of the things that he did. Hey, do you know Joe Fisk? He was a big piano player. He was great in many things. So they drew this little cartoon. And so my brother decided to kind of follow that pattern with the rest of my family. So he's currently working on my grandparents, and he wrote this one, or drew this one to mimic this one. So after doing all the states that I lived in this journal, the next thing I decided to do was do a section on my grandparents. So I start with where they lived, which is in Houston, and then I go over each of my grandparents. So this is Robert Charles. This is my grandfather. This is the son of my great-grandfather that wrote all these journals. Joseph Landon was his name. And what I do is I cover when they lived, and I talk about them and some of the memories that I have. I have pictures of him, and this is me as a baby with my grandfather. And My brother is still drawing some of the other ones, so this is going to be my great-grandmother. So she will eventually have another one like this, but I've kind of covered all my grandparents through the rest of this journal, this history journal. So I finished my first one. I'm currently on my second one. Just barely got started with it. This is my mother's parents, is where I started with this. They were from Madisonville. So that'll be kind of how I wrap up that. And then I still haven't decided yet what my next historical venue will be. And finally, the last thing I decided to do was a gratitude journal, so I can kind of, days have their ups and downs, and when you're down, it's nice to know that you can refer to something that talks about all the happiness in your life to kind of, more for cheering myself up. So in that one, I use the lined paper, and I drew out lines. I do 5 entries a week. Every Sunday, I write down 5 entries of things that I'm grateful for, is what this one's about. And I've been doing that since I started. Been really enjoyable on that one, and I've already enjoyed. There's been a couple days where I was pretty down. It was nice to go back here and cheer myself up, seeing all the things that have gone good and positive in my life that I have a reason to be grateful for. But that's pretty much the synopsis for this video. Again, I'll be doing another one that kind of discusses what's changed in my journaling. There's, obviously you can see a new notebook here from my original ones. There's been shifts in how I've managed things and how I carry things around, so I'll kind of cover that in the next video. But this one, I just wanted to cover everything that I've been able to accomplish since I started this, and it's going really well. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inserts. I've finished 5 inserts. I've got 3 more in production. So done quite a bit, and I'm very happy with the way this is turning out. So much, my wife was so impressed by it that she actually started doing it herself. And I'll probably, once I get her permission and figure out the pages she doesn't mind people seeing, I might show you kind of what she's done, because she's a scrapbooker. She does a lot more in-depth, a lot more artistic ephemera type things within her inserts than I do with mine. I'm pretty much throw the sticker in and write, where she, puts things behind the other stickers and makes it look a lot prettier. So I might go into that one, but she's now 3 months into it, and she just absolutely loves it. She used to scrapbook all the time, and now she has preferred to move to this medium because it allows her to both journal and scrapbook all at the same time. And we'll cover that maybe in another future episode. But the next one I'll have in a week or 2 here is everything that's changed about my setup when it comes to journaling. I should probably add one last thing to this. One of the other reasons I went with Traveler's Notebook in the first place is because the inserts were small. 32 pages meant I could kind of finish a journal or an insert in about 2 to 3 months and feel kind of a sense of accomplishment rather than an annual type scenario. But also the fact that you can get their binders here, which allow you to put several inserts in at once. They have a little metal bar that you can put in these little clasps so you can add inserts to it, and then I can build that up over time. I've got kind of a layout of what's inside of these specific inserts and just a few stickers to liven it up and the date range from the side. So that's kind of what I decided to do, and it's working really well. I'm excited for what the future will bring on this as I continue to build more and more of these.